Good afternoon, Eddie Peeler, and welcome. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Bird Bird. Good afternoon, K God's Child. Good afternoon, and welcome, welcome, welcome. Felicia Fee, welcome. Monk Chip, welcome. Welcome, welcome. Thank you all for being here. And I'd like to give a shout out to all of those subscribers, new subscribers, old subscribers, day ones, and to all the concrete and all the content creators that are in the room. I honor you and I appreciate you and thank you for being here. Clarissa Earl, Cheryl Brown, Lady Linda, welcome and good afternoon. Thank you all. As you see in the title, um, trust versus trusting in. Trust versus trusting in. Watching some of the stuff that has been transpiring on YouTube and on the news, and I went into meditation, and this is one of the things that trust was uh, what came to my mind and dropped in my spirit. And so, good afternoon, Alzona McIntosh. And so, um, I meditated on it some more and just did a little study. Welcome on site, April. Good evening, good afternoon. Wonderful. Okay, on site, April. I hope that I trust that this word will bless you and strengthen you. Uh, Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. I did get some good rest, although I hung out last night in Texas and in St. Louis, Missouri. um, so therefore, I was able to get some good rest this morning, and I enjoyed myself. And again, looking at some of the stuff on YouTube, and I see a lot of unreal expectation and um, unreal expectations. And I say this a lot, always makes you subject to disappointment. And so, wow, it's just interesting. But today's Wednesday word, welcome back, Wednesday word. Today's Wednesday word is trust versus trusting in. Okay, trust versus trusting in. Good afternoon, Hey Skillet, and welcome. It's good to see you. Okay, we're going to get right into this. Now, I didn't mean for this or didn't want this to sound like a preachment or sermon. Um, however, however it comes out, um, that's what it's meant to be. But as I begin to write and put it together, it really began to sound like um, a good old fashioned pulpit sermon. And let me tell you something, it did bless me. It did bless me. It did bless me. And it made me look at some things differently involving trust and putting trust in. So, without any further ado, let's get into it. Let's get into it. Let's get into it. Let's get into it. Trust. Trust is the firm belief in the reliability, truth, ability, and strength of someone or something. Let me read that again. Trust is the firm belief in the reliability, the truth, the ability, or strength of someone or something. Trust is also, in the context that we're looking at, uh, trust is reliance upon the divine for all sustenance and supply, a mental and emotional recognition and acceptance that the presence of the divine as the ultimate good is all powerful and everywhere present. Let me read that again. And if you'd like to take a pen and a pad and a pen and write some of this down, it will be a blessing to you. Reliance upon, trust is also the reliance upon the divine for all sustenance and supply. It is the reliance, relying on the divine for all sustenance and supply. God is able to do anything. He is able to be your source and your supply. It is a mental and emotional recognition and acceptance. It is a mental and emotional recognition and acceptance that the presence of the divine is the ultimate good and is all powerful and everywhere present. God is everywhere present. Not only is he the source and the supplier, but in our mentality and in our emotion, we recognize and then accept the fact that his presence, that divine presence, is the ultimate good and is all powerful. Your circumstances is not more powerful than God. Your circumstances is not more powerful than God. We begin to accept that the presence of God is the ultimate good. God wants nothing but the best for you. The ultimate good is all powerful and everywhere present. You can't escape God. You can't run and hide. God is everywhere present. He's ever present, everywhere at the same time. He's omnipresent, which means he's every place at the same time. Good afternoon, J. 1700. Thank you for being here. He is all powerful and everywhere present. Now, there is a confusion between putting trust in and trusting someone. And it can be difficult. It can be difficult to see the difference at first glance. However, let's take a moment. Let's take a moment to attempt to get an understanding of putting your trust in and trusting someone. Okay? When you trust someone, it is because you recognize that they are a representative of divine energy. When you trust someone, melancholy, when you trust someone, you recognize that they are a representative of divine energy. In other words, that they are a representative of what God wills for our lives, that they have God in them, and that they respond to what God wants at any given time. In the light of seeing them in divine energy, you know that whatever they do, it will not change the nucleus of their being. In other words, whatever they do, it will not change the fact that they are divine energy, or that they are the representative of divine energy. And then on the on the flip side, um, you also understand that nothing can happen to change the core of who you are. When you operate in divine energy, excuse me, when you operate in divine energy, you understand that whatever a person that also operates in divine energy, whatever they do, it cannot change the fact that deep down inside, they have a relationship and that they are guided by divine energy, okay? By the Spirit of God. And then you understand that nothing that happens to you can change the core, that spirit that is within you. Nothing can change it. Nothing can change who you are. You are not reliant on people. You rely on the divine presence in them, and that the light of the divine will shine through them. In other words, you're not trusting in that person, but you're trusting, what you are trusting is the divine power, the divine light. You trust that that divine light will shine through them. That is what you trust. Putting your trust in man will fail you. Human nature will always fail you. And we make the mistake. We make the mistake of putting our trust in people who we find that are intelligent, that are handsome, that have the perfect bodies, that their breasts are a certain size that turns us on. Yet we don't look on the inside of the individual to see God and to trust the God in them, and not bypass the God that is in them and put our trust in the individual. When you put your trust in the individual, you are subject to be disappointed. You are subject to go through unnecessary changes. So we trust that the divine light, that the divine power will shine through the individual. When you put your trust in someone, this means you expect them to do what they say they will do. Now, here's the catch, which is almost always something you should be doing for yourself, and or there is something that you have, something that you think you need, or something you have that they can take from you to cause you harm. Let me say that again. When you put your trust in someone, this means you expect them to do what they say they will do, which is almost always something you should be doing for yourself. And or there is something they have that you think you need, or something you have that you think they can take away from you to cause you harm. Now, have you ever experienced that? I know I have. I know I have. Some of us have had relationships where we put our trust in individuals, and we wound up putting our trust in individuals because we expect them, number one, to do what they say. Yet, what they say, number one, is what we want to hear, which is something that we should be doing for ourselves. And then we get to the point where we think that they have something that we need. That's why I'm opposed when somebody says that their partner completes them, or their partner is their better half. You need something, you need someone uh, you feel that you need someone or you're trusting in someone to be complete when you are complete yourself. It's a matter of getting in touch with the divine presence of God, walking, tapping into your divineness, the divine spirit that's within you, because we all were born and created with a divine spirit within us. That is that spirit that when we were created, when God breathed the breath of life in us, the essence and the divineness of God that resides in us. It is dangerous to place your reliance in words or promised actions rather than in the divine. How many times have we heard the promises of people that we trusted in? You know, I'm going to do this and I'll never hurt you and I'll never leave you. And what happens? We trusted in them and they wind up doing the very thing that they said that they wouldn't do. It becomes a dangerous place to be. It is a very dangerous place to be. One more time, it is a very dangerous place to be. So if we are not aware, we must become aware that human beings are subject to behave and do anything in response to their own internal fear, guilt, and shame. Anything, anything. People will do anything and behave any kind of way in response to their own internal fear, guilt, and shame. Eternal fear, internal fear, guilt, and shame. And of the three of those, the worst is guilt. The worst is guilt. People will behave unbelievably when they have that internal guilt that is not resolved. So they're liable to behave in any kind of way and do anything in response to their fear, guilt, and shame. So, what is the reason we place our trust in one another? What is the reason we place our trust in one another? I'm going to answer the question. I'm going to answer the question. The answer is because we forget to invoke the presence of the divine in all circumstances. In other words, we substitute we substitute the finite for the infinite. We substitute what we can see, feel, touch, rather than the divine essence and the divine spirit. Do you hear what I'm saying? The reason why we place our trust in each other is because we forget to invoke the presence of the divine in all of our circumstances. We fail. We forget to remember. We fail to remember that in every circumstance, to open the way for the divine presence of God to come in, lead and guide, and take care of the things that we can't take care of. So we put our trust in people who are fallible, people who are apt to fail. And sometimes, even when we invoke the divine, um, even sometimes when we invoke the divine in our circumstances, our trust is betrayed. But in those times, we should embrace the experience as a lesson from the divine, and not play the blame game. See, when you invoke the divine, it does not mean that things are not going to go haywire, and that your trust um, of people is not going to be betrayed. And rather than taking it and playing the blame game, we need to step back, assess the situation, and begin to see the lesson in the situation. It is important, because when we start playing the blame game, we wind up getting stuck. You're blaming me, I'm blaming you, you're blaming me, I'm blaming you, you're blaming Ethel, Ethel blaming me, I'm blaming you, Ethel's blaming you, you're blaming me. And it's an endless cycle. It's endless, and it drags on. And the longer it drags on, the more of your strength is drained, the more of your spiritual strength is drained. Your eyes become blind, that you can't see the manifestation of God's divine presence in your situation. You can't hear God speaking to you in his divine voice, leading and guiding you. We become stuck when we play the blame game. So, here's something else that's very important for us to understand. Trust is not something people must earn. It is not something that people must earn from us. Trust is not given to individuals who prove themselves worthy of our trust. Let me say that again. Trust is not something that people must earn from us. Trust is not given to individuals that prove themselves worthy of our trust. It is not. Trust is divine. Trust is divine. Trust is one of the attributes of God. It is one of the attributes and one of the principles of the universe that is put in place. Trust is divine. It is a given. It is a permanent, essential attribute that we are designed with. We are designed within us with a divine trust. For when you trust God, it is not difficult to trust your fellow man. Or should I say, to trust the divineness, or the divine truths, or the divine presence in an individual. It is a given, a permanent, essential attribute we are designed with. So then, every person, as a manifestation of divine energy, is worthy of being trusted. Let me say that again. Every person, as a manifestation of divine energy, is worthy of being trusted, not worthy of you putting your trust in, but they are worthy of being trusted. So then, you either trust or you don't trust, because trust is not earned, trust is given. So you either trust or you don't trust. There is no such thing as I trust him, but I'm fit. Because if you trust somebody, but that means that you don't trust. Trust demands reliance upon divine wisdom to prove itself in our behaviors. Let me say that again. In other words, trust demands reliant upon God's wisdom to prove itself in our behaviors, to demonstrate itself in our behavior. Let me say that again. Trust demands reliance upon divine wisdom to demonstrate. It depends upon divine wisdom to demonstrate itself in our behaviors. So, in other words, trust demands that we rely on God's wisdom, so that God's wisdom is demonstrated in our behavior. Now, there is a plethora of situations and people that demonstrate that it is not wise to place your trust in them. In other words, there are many people and situations that demonstrate, that prove that it is not wise, it is not using wisdom, it is not based upon wisdom, it is not based upon divine wisdom, because they're demonstrating it that you put your trust in them. In these experiences, our innate wisdom, the wisdom that you are born with, and intuition, again, that you're born with, gives us an internal signal. So when you come into that situation, or you come into the presence of that person that it is not wise to put your trust in, your innate wisdom, your innate intuition ought to give you a signal, an internal signal, not after the fact, but before the fact. And most of us, even though sometimes we don't want to acknowledge it or we dismiss it, we recognize that there is something within us that is causing us to be apprehensive of getting involved, but we override it. We override it almost in every situation or every relationship. We override it. We override the signals. And what comes with that intuition and wisdom, there will be feelings. There will be a feeling of uneasiness. There will be a feeling of pressure and a feeling of conflict. In other words, inside of you, that internal signal, that internal signal is the feelings of uneasiness, a feeling of pressure, and a feeling of conflict. Then you find yourself resistant. Here's another feeling. You begin to feel resistance, the resistance to move forward, or the resistance to rely on what you hear and see. But again, we get into trouble when we don't pay attention. We get into trouble when we are not obedient to the innate wisdom and the innate intuition, the feeling of apprehension that's saying to us, don't get involved. Don't get into the, don't allow yourself to be sucked in. Don't put your trust in this situation or this person, because it's not going to end well. So rather than us trust ourselves and the divine within us, we cast wisdom to the wind and become victims of poor judgment and become prey to our human senses and sympathies. In other words, we come wrapped, tied, and tangled up in the situation because we didn't listen to the intuition and the wisdom that was telling us not to be, not to get involved. So we cast all of that to the wind and become victims. We become victims of poor judgment. And we become prey to our human senses, what we feel, what we see, what we hear, what we touch, what we smell, and our sympathies, going back to the emotion, going back to the feeling. We wind up feeling stuck, and that if we change course, that we feel like we're abandoning them or what have you. Trust the divine for everything you need to live fully, peaceably, and abundantly. Trust the divine. Trust the divine. Trust the divine spirit within you. Trust the divine. Trust the divine for everything you need to live fully, peacefully, and abundantly. When you trust the divine, believe me, your life becomes full, your life becomes peaceful, because that trusting in the divine will cause you to be led into peace, into a fuller life, and into abundance. It will cause you to live abundance. It will cause you to get the desires of your heart. Knowing that people will not always do the divine or right thing. And here's where we get a little off. Here's where we get a little off, because we tend to throw out the window as well that we think that people will always do the right thing just because we are in relationship with them. We always tend to feel that way, and we don't read the signs. We don't listen to our intuition that, tells us, no, everybody is fallible. Everyone is fallible. So we have to remember that people will not always do the right thing or the divine thing. However, remember, you are not putting, so when this happens, remember, you're not putting your trust in people. You are trusting that the divine will manifest through people. Let me say that again. You are not putting your trust in people. You are trusting that the divine will manifest through people. You are trusting that the divine will show up, will show up and do what it do, make itself known. Trust the divine to provide you with wisdom to make the right decision in every circumstance you find yourself. It is important. It is important. It is important. It is important. It is important that we begin to learn to trust the divine to provide us with wisdom to make the right decisions in every circumstance we find ourselves in. We have to get to that point. Things will not change in our lives until we get to that point. So, when you want to know what to do, just quietly ask in your heart, and you will be guided and be protected. Now, with that being said, you have to understand it does not come without a cost, and that you should be encouraged to understand that people and conditions may challenge you. People and conditions may challenge you. When you ask to be led and protected, when you ask to be guided and protected, people and conditions may challenge you and cause it to seem um, like you are not doing the right thing. In other words, sometimes in those in people and situations, it will cause you to think that you're not doing the right thing. Some people will spin it and flip it and manipulate it to make it look like you're not doing the right thing, and will even cause you to doubt yourself. I'm trying to hold myself from saying, say amen. And I've been there. I've been there where the people and the conditions challenge me. Because you see, one of the things I find out in dealing with people is that people love they lie on convenience. Um, they spin and flip things so that they're not looked at as the villain. Everybody wants to be the victim, but not the villain. So they flip it and they switch it and they spin it. Now, just a few nights ago, I had been seeing this back and forth between individuals. And as I went back into some of the videos, I heard contradictions, paradoxes, out and out lies. In some of the videos, the persons were actually confessing to have lied. They had given descriptions that proved that they were where they said they weren't. Oh, the gate was open, the gate was unlocked, and the dog wasn't in the yard, and I could have just walked on in. You just confessed to something that you said you didn't do. You said you wasn't even in the vicinity. How would you know? How would you be able to describe the area or the security or the secureness if you were not present? And so these things, these situations and these people will cause you sometime or will cause it to seem that you're not doing the right thing and cause you to doubt yourself. Will cause you to doubt yourself. But here's the encouragement. It is in these very moments that you are called upon to activate your trust in the divine. This is the very time when, instead of allowing yourself to be weighted down and to be depressed and feeling powerless, this is the time to activate that trust that you have in the divine. And then to rely on what your heart tells you is true. Here's the third encouragement. Don't be afraid to recognize the truth in any situation and act accordingly. Listen, right always follows right. You can never make right wrong, no matter how you spin it, no matter how you dress it up, how you try to hide it. The truth will always be the truth. And there's that saying that we say that if you tell one lie, you have to tell another lie to cover your first lie. And then you have to tell another lie, an even bigger lie, to cover your first and second lie. And by the time you get to the fourth and fifth lie, you forget what you said in the beginning and you are exposed. And this is what's happening. People are beginning to expose themselves by the lies that they've told. I said this a long time ago. Well, not a long time ago, but some videos back. I said, please, whatever you do, go back and review your videos and just write down your lies as you tell them. This way you can keep up with your lies. You can keep up with your lies. Otherwise, you are going to definitely give yourself away somewhere along the line. Individual said recently that the situation that came up with them is that after they were noticed, they reached out, sent a text message, a call or something, and the other person did not respond. Then came into their live and said something, and they reprimanded, and then the person left and went on somebody else's live, and that's how the whole thing supposedly happened. Well, in my observation, if you reached out to the person between the time that they came into your live and the time that they went in somebody else's life, or should I say, before they came into your life, then what was the basis for the whole debacle? What was the basis for the whole debacle? Doesn't make sense. So in these moments that you are called upon to activate your trust in divine and to rely on what your heart tells you is truth, and don't be afraid to recognize the truth in the situation and act accordingly. Act accordingly. Act according to what? Act according to the truth in the situation. Not acting according to your feelings, acting according to your emotion, but act according to the truth. Act according to the truth. Acting according to what the truth is, standing on the truth and not letting anyone sway you from the truth, because if you are standing with truth, you will never go down. And if you do go down, the truth will lift you right back up, because the truth will always and forever be the truth. Now, learning to recognize and interpret the signs and signals, you undoubtedly see, sometimes you write stuff and you're trying to type fast and I can't type fast. Okay. Learning to recognize and interpret the signs and signals, you will undoubtedly gain. It will gain. It will teach you to trust yourself as a result of trusting the divine. Okay, let me read that correctly because something is going on here. And I proofread my notes, but somehow, learning to recognize and interpret the signs and signals, you undoubtedly will gain, and it will teach you to trust yourself as a result of trusting the divine. Learning to recognize and interpret the signs and signals, you undoubtedly gain. There is gain. And it will teach you to trust yourself as a result of trusting the divine. So each time you go through it, you're developing the skills to recognize and interpret the signals. And in so doing, you gain. You will undoubtedly gain. And it will teach you, number one, to trust yourself. So when you're trusting the divine, you learn to trust yourself. You learn to trust that you have the ability to make the right decisions. And it comes as a result of trusting the divine. And this is what happens. And that will have an extremely important and positive impact on your life and in your life. Let me say that again. When you recognize and interpret the signs and signals, you undoubtedly gain. And it will teach you to trust yourself. As a result of trusting the divine, and that will have an extremely important and positive impact both on your life and in your life. And you won't be caught up in a lot of the mess. Wisdom will kick in and discern whether this is something you should be part of or this is somebody you should be aligned with. And when we observe that people have trust issues. And most of the trust issues are with themselves. When you lie to me, when you lie on me, you do not trust the divine, nor do you trust yourself. Because if you trust, you're secure. When you trust, you gain wisdom on who to trust and what to trust. Why? Because your trust is in the divine signature that is upon that person's life. You recognize that you can trust not in the person, but you can trust the divine spirit that is in the individual. And even if you disagree, it is not a big war. It is just simply a disagreement. Listen, one of the things that I am learning in life is that when you disagree with an individual, it is a portal to learning something different. It is the opportunity to open up a different perspective. It gives you the opportunity to see how other people think. I don't have to agree with how you think, because how you think does not affect me personally, or should not affect me personally. Especially if I'm disagreeing. You have your point of view, I have mine. But we can still work together. We can still accomplish together. Remember, one of the Wednesday words was team, TEAM. Together, each achieve more. It doesn't mean that we have to think the same. It doesn't mean we have to that one point of view is more important than the other point of view, and that one point of view should be the point of view, should control everything. But it means it gives us room to work together, to share views, opinions, and ideas, to see things from a different perspective and to be open to try something new. If it doesn't work from, and most of us know what doesn't work for us. But that should never stop us. That should never stop us from working together to each achieve more. Together. Each achieves more together. Together, each achieves more. Good evening, Foxy Lady. Thank you for being here. Designs by V, you know you're welcome, and you know how I feel about you. I am grateful that you have graced us with your presence. So, let us begin to practice trust. Trust in the divine essence of God that is within us. Let us trust, because again, if you cannot trust the divine in you, you cannot trust, or you cannot see the divine in someone else to trust. And remember, you are not trusting in a person. You are trusting the spirit within them that they will do the right thing. And even if they don't do the right thing, you don't get all frustrated and disjointed, because you know deep down inside that you didn't trust them, you trust the design spirit in them, and you know that they are fallible and they are not always going to do the right thing. However, you know that that doesn't change the fact that the divine is in them. And your trust, and I one of my points was that you're not trusting in them, but you are trusting in the divine. And that trust is the firm belief in the reliability, truth, ability, and strength of someone or something. And then when we go deeper, we find ourselves that trust is the reliance upon the divine for all sustenance and supply. Now, I've said this before, that when God blesses us, God does not just allow it to appear out of nowhere. God uses individuals and circumstances which are available for him to use to get that blessing to you. Case in point, or example, when someone sends you mail, it just doesn't show up in your mailbox. There is a process. There is somebody at the post office sorting the mail, and then there is someone that delivers the mail. What God does, after he has called your blessing to be manifested, what he does is he gives it to the mailman or mail woman, that individual that is available, that is assigned in your area, and he gives them the blessing to deliver to you. That's how that works. God works through people and circumstances. That's how you are blessed. So this is why we trust the divine. We trust God because he has the power. He has the wisdom. He has the wherewithal to strategically align things and people in our path to bless us. That's what he does. And you know what? I'm grateful and I'm thankful. I'm grateful and I'm thankful because let's face it, I rely upon the fact that he is divine and that he has all my sustenance and supply, and he knows when and where to manifest it. A mental and emotional recognition and acceptance. We recognize, then we accept that the presence of the divine is the ultimate good, as the ultimate good is all powerful and everywhere present. So in the midst of it all, God is ever present. He's where you are. He is right where you are. And I trust that he is where I am. I trust that because I have experienced needing him at a moment's notice. And the way I was always taught, quote unquote, is that he may not come when you want him, but is always on time. And I really refute that because everything, both in the Bible that I have read and that I've ingested, and the spirit of the divine that is within me tells me that that is not true. He will come exactly when you want him, when you need him. Why? Because he's ever present. That is the reality of God. He is ever present. Now, when we accept that, we will begin to live a much more productive life. And we will see the manifestation of the things that we desire and the things that we deserve. I am grateful that you all have come in to Wednesday Word, that I can share with you what has been shared with me. I'm grateful. I really am. You guys just don't know how grateful I am. It has always been my desire to share with people. It has always been my gift to share with people, whether it was my music or a word of encouragement. Word of instruction. It has always been, my joy that when people hear implies spirit. It does not imply intellect, because the spirit and the intellect are always fighting against each other. What you know is always trying to take control over what your spirit is telling you. When you hear a word of encouragement, it goes into your spirit and it feeds your spirit and causes your spirit to become strong. And with that, you learn to yield to your spirit. So it is such a joy for me to share with you information and tools that you can hear, and that you hear it in your spirit, and it takes root, and you begin to use the tools to live better, to feel better, to look better, to have a better outlook and a better life experience. So I thank you all for coming here and being here. Mysterious Mermaid, Maturish, uh, On-Site April. Well, On-Site April, you all last week, uh, I think it was Sunday when we were in service. I don't like to call it service, but anyway, when we were in service on Sunday, I didn't have any moderators in the house, and there were several people that there was two other people besides On-Site April that volunteered to be temporary mods, and I appreciate that. I just haven't taken the wrenches back yet, but I guess, whatever. Um, but I thank you all for being here, and I thank you, On-Site April. I really appreciate you. J. 1700. I really appreciate you. Um, those of you that haven't subscribed to J. 1700, he is an encouragement. He's gifted and talented. His videos will make you laugh, and they'll also make you think. Um, and it is our endeavor to get him up to 1,000. Yeah, it's our endeavor to get him up to 1,000. So let's all work together and be what we want to see. Let us support one another. Maturish is in the house. Yes, Maturish, you're right. We need tools to be better. Also, Maturish is in the house. She's a content creator, which has been a blessing to me. Let us subscribe to these individuals who are a blessing, to the body. And let's support them. Let's subscribe. Let's get them up to 1,000. Everybody can win. And how do we win? By working as a team. Cross support, inter support. We support everybody. Melancholy, thank you for being here. We appreciate you. Designs by V is another content creator who does some magnificent designs, and she teaches you how to shop Goodwill and turn Goodwill finds into gold, into beautiful. Some of the things I am so encouraged that when I get my new house, because I'm planning to move, when I get my new house, I'm going to take a lot of her videos and go back and watch them to create the atmosphere and the kind of living that or lavish living, if you will, on a budget, because she'll shop on a budget, and then she'll find these finds, and the atmosphere that they bring is wonderful. She turns them inside out, upside down, and before you know it, you look at it, it's finished, and you didn't realize that that's what she started with. And that is a gift and an encouragement. And let us support Designs by V as well. On-Site April is a content creator. Let's support On-Site April. Auntie, most people call her Auntie April, but she's called me Uncle first, so I call her niece On-Site April. Let's support each other. Let's help each other to win. If you're not subscribed, subscribe. And every now and then go by and say, hey, I'm here for support. All right. I certainly will. I certainly will. Thank you for the invite. Oh, yeah. Well, I accept your invite to come over to my house. Not a problem. Clarissa Earl, thank you for being here. I appreciate the time that, uh, as Sean Bradley says, for spending time with me that you will never get back. Truly, I pray that you will never regret the time that you spent here, and that the time that you spent here empowered you in a personal way. Because in order to be empowered, you have to get, or in order to empower anyone, you have to be empowered first. And most of us that I've associated with on here, that's what we do. We empower one another and then come and empower one another. So I thank you all for being here. To all of the of my subscribers, my old subscribers, my new subscribers, I appreciate you. All the comments that you all send, it is a blessing to me, and I appreciate every last one of you, one by one and name by name. Now I'm going to say this. We're coming to the end of our broadcast. So we're going to encourage you that on tomorrow, we are definitely going to have Thank You Thursday. And I think I've decided, or well, the way it's moving is that every Thank You Thursday will be about thank you and appreciation, first to God, the creator of all things, who allows us to even be. So tomorrow is Thank You Thursday, and I look forward to seeing you all again. Now I got a notification that Tracy is live. So I reckon, I thought I would have time to make something to eat, but I'm gonna have to multitask. But at any rate, again, I thank you all. And as is my norm, I decree and declare much love unto you. More love than your mind can conceive, more love than your heart can feel, and more love than your two hands could ever hold. The reason why I declare and decree love unto you, or much love unto you, is because love covers, love heals, love pardons. And most of all, when you love authentically without looking for anything in return, it affords you the ability, the natural ability, the automatic ability to keep all the commandments. So much love to you all, and enjoy your evening. J Dot, you have my let me put my email in here, J Dot. Oh gosh, I'm putting the email in and don't even. Okay, let's try this again. Okay. No, here it is. It's two M's. There it is, J Dot. That's my email. JOHNNYMMAC.365@gmail.com. Okay. Yeah, let's talk. Let us commune, my brother or my son. All right, my son, my vlog son. All right, so I'll see all of you tomorrow. Thank you for coming and have a good night. Enjoy the rest of your evening.